What year is this?
What year do you think it is?
1996.
That's the future, James. Do you think you're living in the future?
I am simply trying to gather information to help the people in the present trace the path of the virus.
We're not in the present now.
This is a place for crazy people.
I'm not saying you're not mentally ill. For all I know, you're crazy as a loon.
The Army of the 12 Monkeys, they're the ones that spread the virus.
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
Hey, ain't over yet, brother bears.
This week, we'll be discussing the science fiction classic 12 Monkeys, starring Bruce Willis, Brad Pitt, Madeline Stowe. It's an all-star cast, to say the least.
Madeline still looks like that Garner girl, right?
Vaguely.
All right.
Vaguely Jennifer Garner-esque, if you will.
I had to look at. I'm like, who is that girl? I will tell you, it seems odd to me that a year into the pandemic, and this is our first pandemic movie.
Yes.
How did that slip on? We could have done bunts of this shit.
You're telling me. Yeah, it's nothing but pandemic. I think we want to put a little distance between ourselves initially, and a lot of pandemic destroys the world kind of stuff.
I mean, that sounds good, but I really don't think that's the reason.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either.
We're just ding dongs. All right.
Wah, wah, wah.
On a different note, I am listening to American Psycho, and they dropped Donald Trump's name about 100,000 times.
The audiobook?
The audiobook. So it's literally, is that Ivana Trump sitting up at the booth near the front? Where? It's fantastic.
How far are you into the book?
I think I'm about 5 hours in. So I'm not really sure because I haven't looked. I was stuck in traffic for 4.5 hours just coming to LA yesterday. So
is it gruesome?
Or the other day. There's a graphic detail of the bum, but we're just starting to freak out. Most of the stuff is veiled references with describing people and who I raped with blah 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 blah.
I see.
But we haven't got down to. He hasn't started hacking everybody up, and the descriptions when he's talking about his skincare products.
Yeah.
Every new person is a complete description of what they're wearing. Everyone that walks in. Throughout the entire book, it's fascinating. It's because it's all that surface detail with no substance behind it. So it's interesting so far. I'll let you know. It was pretty graphic, but I read a lot of serial killer books.
Oh, God.
So, graphic is all relative, especially when it's not real,
Well, here's something else you need to think about. There is the Bret Easton Ellis shared universe. All the books take place in the same universe. So there's some crossover of characters, or it's somebody's brother is the star of a different book kind of thing. It's all connected.
Interesting.
Yes, it's all connected.
And it seems very anti-gay for someone who is gay.
Well, he didn't admit to being gay until...
Do you think this is like those Southern Republican senators?
I don't know what the story is. He did not come out. Bret Easton Ellis did not come out until, I want to say 10 years ago. And it was only after he was accused of some kind of... sexual abuse. He put his hands on some dude that he shouldn't have, sort of situation. And it's kind of like Kevin Spacey, where it's
Kevin Spacey. He should have felt up Kevin Spacey and see how that worked out.
Well, it's that thing where it's I get caught being a monster, and I'm going to say, oh, by the way, I'm gay.
So I can't be a monster?
No, who knows? Do not, or it's it's because it's that same kind of thing where it's I'm going to choose this moment to come out to everybody. I don't know if it's a bait and switch or if he's trying to draw a causal connection, which is not a good thing to do. So who the hell knows?
Well, and the interesting part, my final thought was, at first he said he was describing his father. But later he came out, he's describing himself. He is the monster.
Right. That's right. He admitted.
So maybe he came to that revelation. Yeah, maybe he came to that revelation after he got into trouble. But meanwhile, back to 12 Monkeys, Bruce Willis has got a great ass. Let me just say that.
Oh, God.
They're constantly scrubbing it through the entire movie.
Multiple scenes of his Buddha getting scrubbed. First in the future, and then at County.
He was not hot when he was Thorazined up with long strings of Droozle hanging down.
There was a lot of drooling Bruce.
A lot of Droozle, a lot of Cuckoo's Nest Biz, but...
yes.
I mean, I think... What came first, this or Pulp Fiction?
They were pretty close.
Because I'm trying to discover this arc to where when he... Because he did all the Die Hard, and those were all bullshit, as I'm sure we can agree.
The first one was damn poetry. So don't you say that to me. Then,
he really wowed me in Pulp Fiction. But this seems like he was almost to Pulp Fiction. There are some times where I was like, meh. But there seemed to be bits of acting in here.
Right. It's the same. I want to say they were within a year of each other, because this was nominated for a bunch of stuff as well.
And it's the least Terry Gilliam of all the Terry Gilliam movies I've seen. Wouldn't you say? Half the time you think you're in a dark Dr. Seuss novel.
Well, that's how I usually feel about Terry Gilliam stuff.
Right.
No,
but this was pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward, but it definitely had those crazy Gilliam flourishes. Where it's like Bruce will. We're kind of jumping all over the place. First of all, let's go back. Let's go back. Give us a 30-second synopsis, please.
All right. In the dark future, there's a plague, and people are driven underground, and the animals have taken over.
Right.
So there's a group of people that are looking for volunteers to send them into the past to discover the point where the disease is unleashed and if possible get a sample of it,
right,
so they can go back and correct it. It's like one of these things that we see so many of these movies where they're going into the past to try to fix things, and it always creates some other problem.
It almost seems like they don't want to change the past. They want the formula so that they can fix their present, is the way I read it.
Oh.
Yes, because he even says, like, oh, well, you can't change that. You can't. He makes some comments along those lines.
Okay, so the idea is you can't change the past, but you can, like, inoculate people for the vid.
Right.
We'll just call it the vid for now on.
The vid?
The COVID.
Oh, gotcha.
Come on, bro.
I call it the Rona. Corona.
I call it all it. My Rona. So, anyway... At first he fails because he looks like he's in a lab, like one of the monkeys that are in the labs that people are constantly rescuing. And I see that parallel later when we meet the army of the 12 monkeys and they're freeing the animals from the lab. So to me, when he was underground, it reminded me like he was the experiment, because they're looking for volunteers.
Right.
For this thing, but guess what? The volunteers never seem to come back.
Well, I guess he's a criminal or something, because they're like, you got your pardon?
Yeah, he gets a pardon. We don't know what his crime is.
Right.
But here's your you get pardoned if you can do this thing. So anyway, first time he goes, it doesn't work out. He's in a drooling mental asylum. He's freaking out. They're not preparing these people. They're just dumping them. And they need to get samples of things.
Well, they sent him to the wrong time. They sent him 6 years early.
There seems to be a problem where they haven't quite mastered this.
Right.
So, yeah, this is like Time Bandits. So they're going to different periods of time.
Right.
And he's now in a mental asylum, except he's like 7 years too early. So he goes out and he's like, send me back. So they send him back. Meanwhile, he develops a relationship with a psychiatrist.
Yep.
because she apparently keeps running into him and has this multiple exposures with him. So she always has this feeling like she knows him. So anyway, he kidnaps her. They try to figure out the 12 monkeys. And it's not what you think. And since you can't change the past, the nightmare that he keeps having, he is in. Now, if I was a Star Trek person, I would think there's some shift. Like, you can't see yourself when you run. He runs into himself. He's a child and he's an adult at the same time. The child witnesses the death of the adult.
Well, and that's kind of, there are things, because he was a child in the airport, because he has these memories. But because it was so long ago, his memory's kind of hazy as to who the long-haired gentleman is running down, getting gunned down in front of him.
I mean, it's a shocking murder. He doesn't, of course, realize he's watching himself. So, if you're 11, how much do you remember of all of this? And let me finish my freak out. The ending is ambiguous.
In what sense?
We don't really know what happens. I'm proposing that.
I think I know exactly what happens.
I think I know what happens.
But
it's not confirmed.
Okay, we're going to talk about this. Because it's a crazy.
I know we are.
It's a crazy time. Now, when did you first hear of 12 Monkeys? I always call it 13 Monkeys for some reason.
It's always running in the background.
Always? You just have it on a loop?
I mean, it's been mentioned many times. I talked to our cousin, and her husband, whenever it's on, has to watch it. And actually, apparently there's a series.
Yes.
I've never seen that. But, I mean, it's always been on my watch list somewhere.
I saw it in the theater, and then I never saw it again. I was not that impressed with it.
I thought you were opposed to Terry Gilliam.
I didn't like it that much. I liked it. I actually enjoyed it more this time than I did at that time. For some reason.
Because of the pandemic, or because your love for Bruce Willis is
I felt like Brad Pitt is basically what it is. I'm like, he's my guy.
Okay, we got a whole lot to say about Brad Pitt, and not a lot of it's positive.
I really didn't write down as many notes.
I have one page of notes because two things happened.
Yes.
One, I got into it, and two, I got bored at times. So I was on my phone.
That seems a contradiction of terms. If you're like, I was so into it, and yet incredibly bored.
There were phases of it. Plus, I'd just driven 4 hours. So
that'll do it every time. Okay, what I was going to talk about, we're sliding over into the highlights, or as I like to call it,
highlights.
What the hell is this?
Yes.
It had those Terry Gilliam flourishes in the future. Where it's like,
all right, so
Bruce Willis, they're like, Bruce Willis, go up, on the surface and get samples. He has to wear a crazy, clear suit with Christmas lights, in there.
It's a condom.
It was typical Terry Gilliam futuristic nonsense.
But once again, the least Gilliam of all the Gilliams.
Well, because when he's in modern day, it seems like kind of a normal movie. It only seems very Gilliam-y when he's in the future. And then it's weird flying up, and all the doctors have weird...
It's a lot of steampunk glasses and interesting suits and gauntlets and all kinds of interesting things for the future.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
My only question was, if the people are driven underground because of the virus, how come it doesn't kill all the animals?
I wrote that down, and I guess they make a point of saying that the virus or whatever was designed to not kill the animals.
So this is kind of like an Inferno thing where you've got someone who's trying to restore the order of the earth.
Something like... Well, and the guy who was eventually revealed to be the cause of it all, he said something earlier.
It's not who you thought.
Well, and what's I have to say this. That's so ridiculous. His crazy, weird, unnatural colored hair that he has. What's it?
I find that actor so irritating.
His name, he was in where
Morse or something.
Morse is his name. And he is really...
He has a baby head.
Well, yes. Well, he's a big guy. He's a big guy with a baby head. But he has I don't know what color it is. It's kind of orange.
Oh, it's Carrot Top.
It's kind of orange. He's got it pulled back in a ponytail.
No, not kind
It's
of. It's
unnatural.
Carrot
No,
Top.
no. It's if I saw Carrot Top, I'd be like, his hair is red or whatever. That appears in nature. Crazy red hair appears in nature. This guy's hair is
it's 1980s audacious red from the Torrance collection. I think I used to dye my hair
something.
that color.
And then I remember being confused because the whole movie, you're told the virus is released by the army of the 12 monkeys.
Right.
The whole time that's the feeling behind it. When they introduced David Morse as kind of the lab assistant for Christopher Plummer, who's also in this movie,
all-star
cast, I literally thought he was secretly a member of the Army of the 12 Monkeys.
Because he's too high profile to just be the lab assistant. You can't have like Bobby De Niro bussing tables and then you never see him again.
Well, because
not that this guy's Bobby.
He's Bobby D.
Bobby D, what up? I'd like some more water and a refill on the iced tea.
Well, because earlier in the movie he pops up and at Madeline Stowe's book signing. And says something like, don't you think that the world should just go back to the animals? So it makes some kind of, apocalyptic declaration that we're supposed to be like, oh, okay. Why are you here? Okay, it's all come together. So, but the reveal is, spoiler alert, is there is Army of the 12 Monkeys run by Brad Pitt, but their goals have nothing to do with the virus at all. Their goals.
He's more like a PETA goal where they're just freeing the zoo animals.
Right. That basically, yes. They go to the zoo and release all the animals from the zoo. So you see like giraffes running down the freeway. And that also explains why there are lions roaming around New York City or whatever it is.
In the beginning,
Philadelphia.
You see Philadelphia and like the downtown area. Well, I don't know what Philadelphia is, but it looks like a financial district or something. And really, the visuals are kind of cool. You see the lions walking by. There were some very cool visuals.
Right, and that kind of explains.
I love seeing the giraffes running down the freeway, and it was like, there's giraffes running down the freeway. So the taxi cab lady.
Yes,
and I'm just
go for it. That's how we roll.
The taxi cab lady. I swear to you, I don't know if you know who Amy Sedaris
I do.
is. She has a TV show, and one of her characters, I swear to you, is that cab driver. She has the cab. She has this whole. It's like the wine delivery lady, and I swear to you, she modeled it off that character.
Could be.
So Amy Sedaris, the taxi driver, as I will refer to her now, is just like. Yeah, there's like giraffes running down the street. You're going to be delayed getting to the airport.
Normally we'd get to the airport on time, but today there are wild animals roaming the streets.
Oh, allow me to point to the overpass with the giraffes.
Yes.
Like non-post. It was just like...
That's how they do in Philly, is the moral of the story.
That's right. Nothing shocks a Philly.
Philly from Philly.
The Philly freaks.
So that explains, because I remember watching when they show the lions step up on like the balcony area. I'm like, I don't care how many years after the pandemic this has occurred, there ain't going to be lions roaming around. Okay.
Yeah, because it seems cold. One, and they would have. What are they eating at this point? Because all the
what do they cross the ice bridge? I mean, they live in Africa. Okay.
They live in Africa. I mean, they exist in zoos, but they have heated rooms and someone brings them food.
Okay. So that explains. So the Army of the 12 Monkeys releases the animals as kind of a PETA eco protest. What was the thing?
Yeah, a bunch of nonsense. Because Brad Pitt is crazy as a goose.
Right, because he is the son. He's the lunatic son of Christopher Plummer, who's the guy who creates the viruses, basically. So you think there's a connection. But really it has nothing to do with it. It's a total MacGuffin. An old red herring.
It's a MacGuffin.
Red herring to trick you. Because
I have all kinds of issues with Brad Pitt in this and his
you mean Academy Award nominated performance? Is that what you're referring to?
You're not telling me that that's
That is absolutely a truth. Nominated. Academy
Okay.
Award nominated performance. Thank you very much.
I found it horrible.
Well, because he wasn't.
Oh my
Yes.
God. It's ridiculous. Oh my God.
'Cause-
What won for Best Picture that year? I mean, it
12
had to be
Monkeys.
like, 12 Monkeys did not
No.
win, but it was good. No, I am shocked. This is shocking.
I'll say this. I wrote things down.
It must have been slim pickings.
I wrote the Best Supporting Actor nominee, Brad Pitt, 12 Monkeys.
Did Bruce Willis?
He was nominated for a Golden Globe, and I think he won. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea. I can look it up. It wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me.
Well, I would pick Bruce Willis over Brad Pitt because Brad Pitt was it was only a slightly larger kind of acting than California.
Oscar,
and he was much better.
Oscar nominee, best actor in a supporting role, Brad Pitt. Golden Globe winner, best performance by an actor in a supporting role in a motion picture, Brad Pitt. Bam.
Oh, Jesus.
Bam. And I guess,
who is he effing in the foreign press? Because this is bullshit.
Well, this is the way it works.
This
is the way it works. If you want to win, or at least be nominated for Academy Award, you need to be really physically attractive and then play a role that makes you be unattractive. Charlize Theron in Monster. Do I need to go on? It's basically what it is.
Okay, but that was good.
I'm not talking about the performance. I'm just telling you, we love it when beautiful people make themselves look less attractive. You get nominated for that. There you go.
Monster was more than that. I mean, she has the chops.
I'm just telling you,
and it adds.
I'm just telling you.
I've heard that before, for sure.
So he's on it. I mean, good-looking Brad Pitt is twitchy and crazy, and I swear to God, they gave him a crazy glass eye or something at one point.
Yes, it was so distracting. This weird eye that I only noticed halfway through.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's new. And then the other problem, I just have a big problem with this character who's clearly out of control. But if you're that insane, there's no way you're holding it together through business meetings and you're able to control the crazy. Right. And then it just slips out every now and then.
Well, they say that he was a member of this environmental group. And then his ideas were too extreme. So he formed kind of a splinter group, which was the Army of the 12 Monkeys. And, so it was only like, I don't know, 5 or 6 people or whatever. At one point, one of the other guys goes, "Are you seeing this? This guy's just nuts. He's crazy. I didn't realize he was this crazy."
He's crazy.
Yes.
And what was the more extreme? They let the animals out of the... They used to do that every 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, he's not like crazy, but in kind of a charming, seductive way.
But he
is
was
twitchy.
In the asylum.
He's twitchy. He's spazzing. He's drooling.
He's smacking his head.
No one would follow him. No right-minded person would be like, "That's the guy I'm following." I mean,
because that's the thing. He's completely out of it. So there's no way that he comes up with this idea, well, I'm going to denounce the group and I'm going to go back with my dad and I'm going to take over. He wouldn't be able to put a cork in it because he's crazy. It's not that he's a sociopath and he's trying to pass for human.
No, he's still
crazy.
His hair.
That's the difference between you and me. We can control our crazy.
That's what it is.
Crazy people can't control the crazy.
And really, it makes no sense that he did all this to get closer with his dad, since he didn't care about the lab anyway. He wasn't after the virus.
No. Right. That's a good point. I mean, that's why you suspect him, because I'm like, okay, so now he's going to step up. He's rejoined the family. He's regaining trust and all of this stuff. And then, or is it that he wanted it, but after they kidnapped Dad, well, we don't have the password anymore. Right. So did that derail their plan?
Oh, maybe. You're right. Because who called? Somebody, was it Madeline Stowe calls Christopher Plummer and says, "Hey,
she called him up and says, your son's part of this group. He's wackadoo. And he's like, nah. But
just in case, I'll give all the information to crazy orange ponytail over here. Bad move.
Oh, yeah. So really, now that we know that, we could change the course of history by not making the phone call.
But that's the question. Is it going to work out no matter what? Because it's like Madeline Stowe bumps into Crazy Orange Ponytail at the airport and immediately susses out, when 6 years ago, that guy asked me a weird question at my book signing. It's him! Get him!
Let's call him My Little
Pony.
And I love the Cassandra reference because I believe that's me.
Oh,
always to know the truth.
Oh, please.
And always nobody believes me. See, right now. Now.
I think of you more like the Brad Pitt character.
Oh my God. I find Brad Pitt
so
sweet
annoying. Jesus.
I mean, he was great in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but he's a little Costner.
I will say this. 90s era Brad Pitt is total Costner. Where you're just kind of like, is he a good actor? Maybe take a couple classes?
We're still saying
no.
I'm telling you, the best thing he ever did was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I think 2000s era Brad Pitt, it wasn't that he became somehow a great actor with great range, but he became an actor that you're like, he's at least entertaining to watch. You know what I mean? He may just be playing himself.
He's making better role
Maybe that's
choices.
what it is too. But he's much more. I don't watch him anymore and go like, God, that line reading. You know what I mean? I used to say that. There are certain Keanu. I used to say that. He actually got better too. In the 90s, there were certain actors who were just like that. No one would say a line like that. No one. It's like Jeff Goldblum and Al Pacino, but on like No Dose or something.
Okay, you can't even.
Well,
I've lost the ability to speak. Okay, now you're referencing. Oh my God! I was so excited. I blew his name out of the water. Who's the fly?
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. So Jeff Goldblum is a Costner, but you don't care
different.
because his roles are so quirky.
Okay, Jeff Goldblum, and I say this like more recent Al Pacino, they still give totally entertaining performances. Even though you're kind of like, what?
That's true.
Why would you, again, it's always like, why would you say it like you're putting the emphasis on the wrong word? You're leaving like weird pauses in the middle of the sentence. Who the hell knows?
Love it.
But they do it in such an entertaining way, you don't care. You don't care. Right. Costner and Keanu, 90s era Keanu, 90s era Brad Pitt.
Because Keanu in Constantine was fan-freaking-tastic.
They were just, in the 90s, you would just be like, what is he? I'm an FBI agent. It didn't matter what. It could be something so vanilla, and still they're just like, what is happening? By the 90s, Keanu and Brad Pitt got better at being able to deliver these lines in realistic ways. And, you know what? Their performances got better. Brad Pitt is much more interesting to watch now. Much more interesting.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. I did enjoy him I mean, really, if I hear Brad Pitt's in a movie, normally I run away. I did enjoy California with a K, but it's not any kind of a stretch. He probably is creepy, quite frankly. But, I mean, that's mostly with his interaction with Juliette Lewis, who he dated while she was 16 and he was 26.
I have to tell you this. I just watched, speaking of Me Too, I just watched the Punky Brewster documentary on Hulu. It's called Kid 90. And it's about kind of and it's all...
She dated Brad Pitt too?
Because she's literally a year younger than me. Okay? In the 90s, she was still kind of acting and things like that. Punky Brewster was a distant memory. She talks about how she lost her virginity to Charlie Sheen, who is at least 15 years older than her. So
I need
and again, this is Punky. I don't know how old she was, but this is before she went away to college. Okay. So this is high school aged Punky Brewster. I'm just keep calling her Punky Brewster. And it's like literally in the early 90s, you saw her hanging out with kind of people like her own age, other kind of young actors and things. By the mid 90s, it's all these older, skeevy, like Mickey Rourke is suddenly at the party with her. We're just like, where it's like, okay, you're like 16 and you're hanging out with these guys who are like 35.
And heavy drugs. That tells you, look at your friends and then look in a mirror.
It's, God. Anyway, we went down a dark turn here. But
that got very, that's
yes,
no
question.
Yikes.
No question. Brad Pitt in this movie is twitchy and strange. Okay? He's not...
He's irritating.
Well, again, it's not like Bruce Willis is Sir Laurence Olivier, but he's fine. He's fine in this. You're like, okay, whatever. You're a little drooly.
I thought he was pretty good. He's
little
a little drooly, but he's very set. I liked it because he's not like the crappy superhero like he is in his earlier movies. At least, there were a couple cringy parts, but we're on the path that brings us to Pulp Fiction where he knocks it the fuck.
There's a bizarre scene which we haven't talked about where they send Bruce Willis back the second time and he appears like in the trenches in the south of France during World War I or something bizarre.
Yes.
And he's bone naked.
Yeah, I think we saw some
You might have. And there's a scene for an old photograph which convinces Madeline Stowe that his stories of time travel are real. And you see like skeletal naked Bruce Willis kind of reaching like in the thing.
He looks like he's crawling out of a hole to snatch that soldier away to bring like some.
He looked like Gollum. He was definitely Smeagol. No question. It was very upsetting. Later in the movie, they establish like a homeless dude tells Bruce Willis, if you rip your front teeth out, then they can't suck you back to the future.
Those were molars. He pulled out
something. He pulled out.
But they had like the four roots, so those are molars he dug out.
And then later, Alan Stowe was just making out with a mouthful of bloody gums, and I was like, maybe a kiss on the cheek.
And for all we know, Bruce Willis has not brushed his teeth or bathed through this entire thing. Because as she talks about how much he smells when he kidnaps her, I think. Or no, that's American.
I smell. At one point, Brad Pitt shouts out, "Colonics for everyone."
Yeah,
that's what you get.
I mean, he was cringy. I thought Brad Pitt.
Madeline Stowe basically was the finest actor on the screen at any given time.
She and Frank
Gorshin, the Riddler, for God's sakes.
They had I was like, holy shit!
I didn't realize he was still acting. Yes, the Riddler from the 1960s, Adam West, Burt Ward TV series. Frank Gorshin shows up as like the head of psychiatry at the Looney Bin or whatever it is. Good Lord. Do you have any other highlights?
Fantastic. There was just some interesting. They were like watching Vertigo, and then the birds.
Well, they were talking about.
I don't know about
they were sitting in the movie theater.
That's about. Why were those? I mean, except they were hiding in there,
right? To disguise themselves, and they're having a loud conversation. There's a dude behind them constantly shushing them. Shh, shh. I'm trying to watch Alfred Hitchcock, for God's sakes, damn it. Oh, sweet Jesus.
I went to San Francisco and did a Vertigo photo shoot, so we tried to go to as many of the locations.
Are you ready for behind the scenes?
And the birds too. I am.
Terry Gilliam gave Bruce Willis a list of Willis acting cliches not to be used during the film, including.
Oh, thank God! Maybe that's
he said you can't say that.
Motherfucker.
Including the steely blue eyes look. Evidently, there's a thing that Bruce Willis does.
Oh yeah, I know, and I'm not even that fan, but I know exactly. What
Terry Gilliam was afraid that Brad Pitt wouldn't be able to pull off his nervous, rapid speech. He sent him to a speech coach, but in the end, all he had to do was take away Pitt's cigarettes. And Pitt played the part exactly as Gilliam wanted. Just that natural,
Perfect.
twitchy. Oh, sweet Jesus.
I stand by.
Bruce Willis
my
took a
statement,
lower salary
certainly.
than a star status would normally entitle because of budget restrictions, but most because he wanted to work with Terry Gilliam. And he basically
wanted
did
to
the movie
grow
for
as
free
an
and only
actor.
got paid after the movie was released. So there you go. And Pitt was
for you,
also
Bruce.
signed for a small salary because he wasn't that big of a star at this point. He's kind of a young, up-and-coming actor. However, by the time the movie was released, Pitt had done Vampire Chronicles, Legends of the Fall, Seven, and then he was a huge star. Well, but
Thelma and Louise
was years before. Yeah, people were not that impressed.
Yeah. I didn't care
sad.
for that either.
Let's see. Terry Gilliam says he met Bruce Willis while he was casting his film The Fisher King, which I enjoy The Fisher King. That might be the one. Oh.
Never saw it.
He's impressed by his sensitivity shown by Willis in the scene from Die Hard, where McClane talks about his wife while pulling glass from his feet. When Gilliam discovered the part was ad-libbed by Willis, Gilliam remembered him, was convinced to cast him in this film. So there you go.
Men love that.
The tagline for this movie was, "The future's in the hands of a man who has none." That's what it was meant to be. He has no future. But it's written in such a way to imply that he had no hands.
I'm like, did I miss that part?
Yeah,
Did he have hooks?
he had hooks.
And I never noticed.
Terry Gilliam's first choice for the lead in this movie was Jeff Bridges.
Brad Pitt.
There you go. The studio wanted a bigger star. So there you go. Very sad. I think that's about it. Shall we talk about the cast?
Someone who slipped by, and I only noticed when I was in Wikipedia, was Matt Ross.
Oh,
Who
he
did
was
Matt
one of
Ross
the
play?
eco guys. I saw when they bust in, he was one of the dudes. Yeah, he's one of the. I noticed him immediately because you're right. From American Psycho. Lewis from American Psycho.
Yes.
More recently,
He's becoming like he's been showing
he was
up in a
most
lot
recently
of our things.
was in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley. If you ever watch that show, he's like the tech billionaire.
He is in frickin' everything. Wasn't he also in Boardwalk Empire?
Is that maybe?
I don't know. Maybe I'm making it up. He plays a mafia.
Bruce Willis plays James Cole. You know him from Die Hard, Pulp Fiction, Moonlighting, The Sixth Sense. Madeline Stowe played Catherine Riley, Rayleigh, not Riley. She was in Shortcuts, General's Daughter, Last of the Mohicans. She had a period of about 5 years where she was like all over these things, like big budget movies, and then just kind of. I think she's still doing stuff, but who's to say?
I hope she saved her money.
Moneyball, Ad Astra, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The list goes on and on.
Oh, Jesus.
Moneyball was quite good.
Moneyball.
Quite good.
He didn't bother me. Yeah.
He bothered you
He didn't bother me in that.
I understand.
Sometimes he bothers me. I find him irritating. I don't know if you picked that
I'm getting it. Frank Gorshin!
But once again, he was amazing
Yes, he was.
in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
We talked about Frank Gorshin was Dr. Fletcher. He's the Riddler. All you need to know is he's the Riddler. Damn it.
That's all you
David Morse played the evil virus releasing guy. And there's that scene where he's in the airport and they're like, "What's this?" He's like, "Oh, it's something." He's like, "We're going to need to open it." He's like, okay. You might need to, and he opens it and then kind of like is waving it around. There you go.
You might have just let him go now.
He was in The Green Mile, The Hurt Locker, Contact, 12 Monkeys, Saint Elsewhere is where he got his big thing.
I remember that.
What else? Anybody else?
What about our cousin, John Copeland, shows up from his role of Law and Order SUV.
Who's John Copeland?
Full head of hair. Her cousin. He looks like the guy from Law
Oh
and
no,
Order
Chris
SVU,
Maloney.
who
That
was in
is
Oz and all that.
Chris Maloney is.
Chris
It is the
Maloney.
same guy. Isn't that well?
I know. I just can't ever
Yes,
remember his
Chris
name. He looks like our
Maloney
cousin.
from Special Victims Unit, not SUV, Sport Utility Vehicle. Yes, he looks like he's 12 in this movie, and he may well be. Very strange. Yes, he plays a detective trying to solve the mystery. Very briefly. Christopher Plummer plays the father. His character's name is Dr. Goines. You know him from... I don't know. They list a bunch of movies, but really he's from Sound of Music. He's the hardest working man in show business. Recently, he was in Knives Out.
Didn't he?
Well, Academy Award.
Yeah, that was bullshit.
What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say?
Who's in this?
Not me. That's for shizzle. That's about it. That's all you need to know. For God's sakes, are you ready to hear the rating?
All right. Are we going to
what?
the ending now? No.
We talked about. Oh,
What happens
sorry,
at
we
the
didn't
end?
really talk about it. So, Bruce Willis keeps remembering.
No.
Okay. So I had
On
to
the
look this
plane.
up because I was confused about this as well.
No.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
Go
since
ahead.
You're
Do
a
your
cheater, so let me tell you. All right. So it's one of the ladies who is.
It's one of the doctors from the future.
It's one of the doctors who has sent Bruce Willis, and
Right.
she's in insurance. So I'm guessing that means that she's there to
That
make
makes
sure
sense.
she
Yeah,
gets
I think
it.
that's basically what it was. I was confused about it at the time because part of me was like, "Oh, is this just coincidence? She just happened to be on the same flight." It's not that
I mean, it
because
could
she's
be
the same age
that,
as she is in the
but
future.
It's
She would have been,
insurance.
she would have been a teenager or something, and it would have been. And so she clearly went back in time to. So I guess theoretically, it's like plague still occurs. However, now she has.
But now she has her
Right.
sample.
So that's the thought. That's how I read it. So I think we're on the same page there.
Right, because at first I was like, well, they could blow up the plane. No, well,
Now here's the question, though. The reason why it spreads, they say basically he goes from airport to airport around the world spreading it. If it's just Philadelphia, I mean,
Right.
rest in peace, Philadelphia. But is everything else okay?
I mean, look at Ebola. I mean, eventually it's an international country. Look at
for sure.
COVID. Hello.
12 Monkeys currently has an 89% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. What do you give it?
I'm giving it 4 out of 5. Firm ass
God.
cheeks of Bruce Willis. Jordy said
I'm going to give it 5 out of 9 drooly Bruce lips. It's not bad. It's not great. It's decent.
It's pretty
It's
good.
decent. I didn't hate it because when I first saw it, I was like, "Yeah, I never need to see this again." Was kind of my attitude when I saw it way back in the '90s. I didn't like it. Now I
that
feel
we're living in
yes,
the pandemic,
it kind of touches
suddenly
me right here in my heart in a way that maybe it didn't before. Yep.
Yeah, it was unpredictable, which is always a bonus.
And I didn't remember the twist, so that kind of made it kind of good as well. You think it's Brad Pitt's the guy, but it's really St. Elsewhere. So there you have it. Yeah. Thank you very much. Go to our page on Facebook at The Podcast That Wouldn't Die. Go to our page on Twitter at TPodcast, TWDie. Email us at thepodcastthatwouldn'tdie@gmail. And I have to say, I never mentioned this before. There's no punctuation in the email address. In case that's why we haven't been getting 10,000. Just an avalanche of fan mail.
That's probably
we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc., etc., etc. And Aaron, you are on social media.
The Cult of Aaron on the Twitter and
on the Twitter.
Instagram.
Yep, good time.
Join the cult.
Send her, DMs. Send her friend requests. Do what you got to do. Okay.
No dick pics.
Pass.
Thanks. Pass.
You say pass, I say fail. There you have it. So, thank you very much, and be well.